Now, what is NFDI? NFDI is the National Research Data Infrastructure. We aim to provide a low barrier access to research data and services to work with research data. We are a large network that consists of many, many partners across Germany, and we are interlinked with Europe. And now today's NFDI Sections Roadshow aims to provide first-hand information about the activities of several, if not all, working groups, actually, if not all, but several, but not all working groups in the NFDI sections, and how they contribute to the goal of NFDI to build a fair data future. The aim of the NFDI Sections Roadshow is to answer the following questions. First of all, what are important cross-cutting topics for a construction of research data infrastructure? Second, what challenges do these cross-cutting topics face when setting up a national research data infrastructure? Third, on what solutions are the sections working in order to address these challenges? Over the next 2 hours, we will take you on a tour and on a drive along the road to a fair data future. So you see here in somewhere at the horizon our goal, NFDI, what NFDI wants to achieve. During the ride, we will take a closer look at the various contributions of the 6 NFDI sections and what they are working on to make this future possible. All these individual passages, signs and buildings contribute to an overall research data infrastructure, and they are therefore central to the common NFDI goal. What is our NFDI goal? It's data as a common good for excellent research organized by the scientific community in Germany. So stay tuned to find out what the various elements along or on the road are all about. Alongside the so-called NFDI consortia, which are domain-specific conglomerates of organizations working towards individual goals for various research domains. Now, alongside to these consortia, the sections are at the heart of NFDI, as they deal with issues that are central to overarching research data management, the so-called cross-cutting topics or issues. This means that the 5 existing sections and the newly established section International Engagements address topics that are central to many or all scientific disciplines, such as the findability or the accessibility of research data. Of course, the individual research data are very specific to particular domains. They have different formats, different contexts. They serve different purposes. However, to have a unified and best possible access to research data, that is our shared goal. The aim is not only to find new solutions, but also to build on existing concepts and solutions and to make them available to other scientific disciplines. So building bridges across disciplines is really at the heart of what we are doing. Research data is diverse and as can be seen here, from the air to the depth of the ground. And the requirements and tasks in the scientific disciplines vary accordingly. And yet there are cross-cutting topics that are challenging for many. It is therefore worthwhile to take an interdisciplinary approach. So NFDI in itself is an inherent interdisciplinary approach. That is always worth remembering it. Because mostly scientific and research data are still only available on a decentralized, project-related or temporary basis, we have huge challenges. And that is where the work of NFDI begins. NFDI's mission is to, step by step, improve the possibilities for using data for science and for society. For this reason, NFDI aims to systematically index and connect valuable scientific and research data for the entire German scientific system and making it available for sustainable and qualitative use. Effective research data management enables researchers to work more efficiently with scientific and research data. They can answer faster their research hypotheses, they can reproduce results from other researchers, and many more goodies are along the way. Now, NFDI strengthens the exchange between different disciplines and Germany as a center of excellent and innovative science and research. It also simplifies the responsible sharing of data between science and industry, and also on an international level. So we are really building bridges in all kinds of different directions. Making research data more fair helps science in its quest to gain new insights. Data is essential for science, and if it is of high quality and easily accessible and reusable for researchers, we really improve the conditions to make new discoveries as fast as possible. Examples of this include research into climate-resistant grains varieties for our food sovereignty, the cure for rare diseases, or innovation in self-driving cars, just to name a few of the examples. NFDI has the goal, accordingly, to design research data based on the FAIR principles. That means to make them findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. You all know it. When research data meets these criteria, it can generate added value for science, industry, society, and state. Now, the start of the road, that is where we begin today, that symbolizes the start of the sections and their work on cross-cutting topics. It's kind of a construction work, you could say. Within NFDI in the sections, the cross-disciplinary collaboration takes place. This is where all comes together. They are established as departments within the NFDI Association. This is the governance aspect. And they offer members of the association and beyond the opportunity to work together on cross-cutting issues. The following 6 cross-cutting themes emerged as key challenges for the development of research data infrastructure. These have been organized into sections below and are presented by the respective section spokespersons. Here are the 6. First of all, the 6 different sections are currently working on these overarching topics that are central, and thus they really address the things that are common to all the scientific disciplines. Each of these 6 sections named here deals with different issues. Before we turn to the presentation of the various topics being pursued in some of the sections working groups, I would like to give you at least a brief overview of the first 5 sections that have been established so far. The 6th section, named International Engagement, has just been established a few weeks ago. This will be presented towards the end of the roadshow, but we can just give you a glimpse into it. Let's start with common infrastructure. The aim of the section Common Infrastructures is to create a multi-cloud-based infrastructure that can be used to exchange and share data, software, and compute resources. So it's really different bits and pieces that are needed to really streamline the work of science and researchers in various domains and their workflows. Second, in order to ensure that research data can be reused efficiently, it must be described with metadata. You know metadata, such as author, license, or the methodology that is being used. And in order to be able to link data from different sources in an interdisciplinary manner, semantic technologies, also known by the words ontologies and knowledge graphs, are to be integrated into the NFDI, enabling a machine-readable representation. And this is what the section Metadata, Terminologies, and Provenienz is working on. Now, thirdly, ethical, legal, and societal aspects. The main goal of ELSA, in short, is to enable researchers to make their data fair, open, and reusable, and at the same time, balance the ethical, legal, and social requirements and responsibilities across all disciplines. For example, compliance with copyright law, data protection regulations, GDPR, meeting proper consent requirements, and overall inclusivity and accessibility standards. And this really is an important aspect in today's world where we have so much data which is of private nature, for example, and sensitive nature. Then we have the section Industry Engagement. And the vision of this section is to create a sustainable framework and according conditions to cooperate as closely as possible with industry. We are shaping cooperation formats that enable a responsible, interoperable, and a fair data exchange between science and industry. And this is really co-working on this issue. So we share the same vision, we share the same ideas, and we try to come up with joint and shared solutions. Then training and education. Well, data literacy plays a key role in solving societal challenges and in understanding the digital culture. Coordinated and targeted training is of great importance for the competitiveness of Germany as a center of research and industry. Therefore, we have an own cross-cutting topic, training and education, where we standardize, for example, the education materials, and we create train-the-trainer concepts to really scale the distribution of data literacy skills across all disciplines. Last but not least, international engagement. This is really being the bridge to the so-called European Open Science Cloud, in short, EOSC. And it is ensuring that national and international data can be reused by researchers. Well, that is the aim of the newly founded section International Engagement. And this goes hand in hand with the development of the so-called European Open Science Cloud, which is in parallel to NFDI, an EC-funded initiative. NFDI is the so-called mandated member of Germany to represent Germany in EOSC, and we bring in all the competencies, the skills, and also services from NFDI into the European space. Now I'm really thrilled to hear about the contributions and activities of the sections and their working groups to the overall goal of NFDI. It's really a shared effort of many, many people, and I'm really looking forward to your contributions today. And with this, I'm handing over to the moderator of today's roadshow, Stephanie, who will guide us through the event. Stephanie, please take it from here on.
So thank you. So we move to our first sign of the NFDI Sections Roadshow. And this is where we're focusing of cross-cutting topics in the different working groups. So therefore, we have our first stop sign here, and we will hear more about the challenges that arise when we talk about shared multi-cloud environment that includes services, trainings, software, data, and support services. So this starts with the underlying infrastructure and architecture. And we would like to show the role that the work of the NFDI plays in the everyday life of a researcher from this perspective. So imagine you start your day as a researcher by logging into the NFDI universe, and therefore we will hear more about the solutions behind it, starting with the components of the architecture to reach such a starting point.
Yes, welcome also from my side. The overall goal of the section Common Infrastructures is to support, identify, design, and build federated infrastructures and software components. For that purpose, we coordinate federated infrastructures and software development across NFDI consortia. We align architectural concepts of NFDI consortia, and we establish a research data commons. In addition to that, we build sustainable technology partnerships and engage with external initiatives, and we support NFDI as a national EOSC node. Within the section, we have different components that are needed for a common infrastructure. For that, we did build different working groups, as you can see on the right-hand side. And we have one working group which has a special role, the working group overall architecture, which coordinates and aligns the work of the other working groups. Apart from that, the section is responsible for 6 core basic services. For the services IAM for NFDI, for Identity and Access Management, for the service PID for NFDI, Persistent Identifier Service, for DMP for NFDI, Data Management Plans, Jupyter for NFDI, a central Jupyter Hub, and NFDI.software for a research software marketplace, and last but not least, accounting for NFDI for accounting within the NFDI, but you will hear of many of them in the remaining of this roadshow. Within our working group overall architecture, our main goal is to help shape our overall picture. We have some external input in this working group, which consists of a consolidation into one NFDI, requirements that origin from structural evaluation of NFDI, the alignment with an NFDI storage provider, and the positioning of NFDI as an EOSC German national node. And we also have some NFDI internal input. So the questions, what are the key requirements from the domain's perspective? What gaps can be spotted in the different domains? What is in scope of an overall NFDI architecture and what isn't? And how do consortia contribute to the overall NFDI infrastructure? And with this, we try to answer the questions within the working group overall architecture. Where is the common ground for an overall architecture? What gaps need to be filled and what governance models are best suited? What we started off within the section overall architecture in the context of a workshop that took place end of last year is we collected approaches from different NFDI consortia, as you can see on this page. So what you see on this page is actually the architecture images of different consortia. It's quite an interesting variety. We had a look at those and yeah, we examine them. What we did within the workshop and what we are still working on is mainly the identification of common building blocks. So we use the consensus-driven participatory process to identify common building blocks and also to define shared and distributed responsibilities. And what we are also working on is the identification of critical services and to provide recommendations for technical interoperability, especially in alignment with the cloud service model and the EOSC. And on the right-hand side, you can already see a rough overview of the different building blocks we identified. Apart from the working group overall architecture, I would like to give you a glimpse on the working group multi-cloud, which is also quite central for our section. The goal of this working group is also to lay the foundation for our overall picture. It targets one of the key aspects that are needed for this overall architecture to build the whole thing. What is the aim? The aim is to work on a decentralized yet federated cloud computing platform to either operate own systems by the consortia or to use a shared cloud system all over. Apart from that, it works on a federated multi-cloud architecture that provides unified access to compute and data storage resources and allows for seamless integration of services and data.
I may give an overview about the details that we're working with in the working groups and in the section. And one of the things that we were very excited about was that we are able to build a scientific data backbone that is organized and fits the needs to the scientific community in Germany. And consequently, we've seen DFG has set up a funding program that also allows us to get this storage infrastructure's funded in the middle of the last year. But of course, this has to be coordinated. And in the working group overall architecture and together with the other working groups and in the section infra, we have been very actively following this process and have been guiding the consortia and the applying universities to create this consistent landscape of storage services. And there were quite a few submissions of proposals last year. And right now, the applicants are waiting for the feedback and the final funding decisions. So let's have a look back at how this came together. And what we started with is a consolidated requirement, an assessment of all the requirements from the NFDI consortia and kind of a mapping towards the potential storage providers. And we really try to orchestrate the 27 consortia and multiple, more than 20 potential storage providers and distribute requirements and try to consolidate the levels and agreements on service levels. And this was all aggregated into a single view. So we had very detailed feedback. It was aggregated and brought on the same level that was required to be put into these storage proposals to make sense on the funding level. And to further communicate with the providers and the consortia, we also developed a even more simple model of handing over different responsibilities in this context. And yeah, so we built this handover model basically that uses the NFDI storage providers that are being selected as a nucleus of infrastructure providers for the consortium. And this is not exclusive to those who are going to receive explicit funding, but of course everyone else who is capable of providing infrastructures, especially non-university partners. And it separates running the storage infrastructures, running the hardware and providing the infrastructure services from actually providing the services to the community and to the scientists. And to do that, there has to be a certain agreement on what part is to be performed by the infrastructure services, IaaS, and by the platform services, PaaS, and by the software as a service, SaaS, and on the different levels, and how the handover is being done, both on a technical perspective, but of course also on an organizational, governance, and legal perspective. And yeah, this agreement is continuously brought forward by the working group and together with the storage providers, and hopefully helps us to create a federation across the different providers. And talking about federation, we already profit from one federated service that has been in place for quite some time, and that is identity and access management. So this is way older than the NFDI, and the technical realization is governed by the German research network, the DFN, on the national, and the GEOND network on the pan-European and international network. And these have been already mapping the landscape, and we took that, the technology, the infrastructures that are available, and converted them into the NFDI consortia. And this is addressed by our working group on identity and access management that is thankfully supported by the Base for NFDI project IAM for NFDI, and building blocks of virtual organizations that can be used by the consortium. And how does that work? So essentially, the strength lies in shared responsibilities. We're having home accounts for users who are in their home organizations. We can feed in additional properties from the virtual organizations, from the NFDI, and all this is combined into the accounts that are being used on the services. And this is governed by a compliance framework that, for example, helps to comply to GDPR, but also to other regulations. And so we can reuse identity information across the different scientific domains. And all this builds on, like I said, an existing infrastructure that is aligned with the AARC blueprint architecture coming from the EOSC project that has been developed previously. Now we just need to make fit to the NFDI consortia and to the implementation of the community. And our base service already provides a software as a service infrastructure that can be reused from the consortia within this framework. And with that, we currently cover 22 of the 26 subject-specific consortia, also the directorate, and to a certain degree also the Base for NFDI consortium, and look at the different development of new, or look at the different requirements in various dimensions, be it standard services that have to be connected, technical extensions of the communities, or consulting and discussion of the policies in depth to really make sure that the subject or discipline specific requirements towards data privacy are met. The connection point is the working group identity and access management and the IAM for NFDI base services that runs incubator projects. And last but not least, a big glimpse on these incubator projects. So these are continuous enhancement cycles where we connect the consortia with the base service, and they run on a 6-month period. So we can really dig in deep into the specific requirements and then have a feedback loop with the working group and give the process and spread the word through regular demos among the different consortia and ensure that we have a significant knowledge transfer between the different providers. And yeah, so currently we have an iteration running, and the next one is going to start mid this year. So stay tuned for updates. We're publishing them regularly.
So we've learned more about the challenges and solutions related to multi-clouds and how services and software can work on them. You see here a possible starting point when you are in the area of the NFDI universe. And with this starting point, of course, researchers themselves have also the possibility to learn more and already have learned a bit more about data literacy. And with our next point, we will hear more about the challenges and visions for training formats and certifications as a next step.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie, and good afternoon, not only to Heidi, but to all of you. And the working group training formats and certification is part of the section Training and Education, EduTrain. And we started in mid of 2022 with our vision that researchers should learn research data management during their education and apply it in their research. And in this process, they are supported by experts for research data management, the data stewards, working in the NFDI consortia or other RDM supporting initiatives. So what are our aims? The first part is to train these data stewards as trainers for researchers on RDM and to find the best training formats to do this. So we are going to test it, but did it already. And the second part, concentrate on a credential framework for certifying training to ensure quality. And as a base for this, we develop quality indicators for training material and didactics. So we have two parts to focus on: the training, or train the trainer, as mentioned before, and the credential framework to certify training or courses. What we have done so far. First step was gaining an overview of training activities and formats from all the NFDI consortia and other RDM initiatives. Then we collect the characteristics of their training material and develop these mentioned criteria as a catalog to have a quality standard for these materials. In a further step, we tested different training formats as train the trainer for the data stewards and evaluated them. And the last step was that we analyzed certification possibilities. And the result was that we go on with so-called micro-credentials. This is a framework to certify short-term learning experience, like a short course or training of 1-2 hours, for example. So, and all this we could reach by building up a base service. This was mentioned already, that we have also a consortium called Base for NFDI bundling these basic services and with RDM training for NFDI, which was funded by the DFG within the Base for NFDI consortium, we were able to do the mentioned points. And you see, we started with 4 pilot consortia to do all the things I just mentioned. And we would like to go on, establish data steward training as a standard. And we would like to relieve the NFDI consortia from the basic RDM training aspects and train the researchers directly in these points, so the NFDI consortia could concentrate on their discipline or method-specific topics. And we would like to pilot training with this mentioned micro-credential system and establish a credential process within the whole NFDI and beyond. And for this, we handed in a new proposal to the Base for NFDI in January and hope we could pursue with our work. And you are very welcome to join us in this topic.
So, handling research data can be challenging, as we heard, for researchers, which is why centralized and specialized trainings are important. So, looking to our next part of the starting page. So, if we imagine that we have a choice of different data, software, and methods in the NFDI universe, then there are further challenges here too, starting with searching for, finding, and harvesting the right data. So, let's hear more about this.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the kind introduction. So my name is Heinrich and I'm presenting the working group Search and Harvest. To start, I would like to ask a simple question. Why does harvesting matter? The short answer is harvesting metadata is key prerequisite for making research outputs discoverable and for supporting the FAIR principles. So findability by indexing the aggregated metadata in search portals, accessibility by providing identifiers and resolvable links, interoperability through cross-domain catalogs and shared standards, and reusability by exposing provenance and context information. The motivation and mission of the working group is to improve the harvesting and discovery process across NFDI by developing recommendations and best practices and discuss with data discovery service providers how to improve NFDI-wide discoverability. In particular, we want to support data providers by the implementation of harvest interfaces and technical solutions and discussing challenges, needs, and approaches across domains and NFDI consortia. In an ideal world, all data sources provide curated, rich, and standardized metadata describing their data resources. These metadata exposed via well-defined provider services and harvested by discovery services, which then collect, map, and index this metadata and make it searchable through portals. As a result, researchers can discover, access, and reuse data across domain boundaries, enabling interdisciplinary research in a seamless way. Unfortunately, reality looks quite different. Many data sources lack the resources, expertise, or capacity to set up reliable provider services or have metadata that are incomplete, inconsistent, not standard compliant, or locked away in silos. As a consequence, discovery services are unable to harvest or meaningfully integrate large parts of the available data landscape. This leads to frustrating and fragmented search experiences and makes cross-domain discovery and reuse much harder than it should be. But where the need is greatest, support by NFDI is not far away. Our proposed approach is bring RESRI-Data, the registry of research data repositories, into the picture. Imagine a situation where all NFDI data sources expose standardized harvestable metadata through a provider service and, in addition, register the repositories with harvesting endpoints in RESRI-Data. Discovery service could then use RESRI-Data as a central lookup point to identify relevant repositories and harvest metadata across NFDI consortia and domains. This would significantly improve the coverage of search indices and enhance true cross-domain and interdisciplinary data discovery. To move in this direction, the working group is developing recommendations for data providers. As a concrete first step, we encourage all NFDI providers to register their repositories in RESRI-Data, including a so-called ORA PIM-H endpoint. This recommendation document is currently work in progress. It will provide practical guidance, from setting up harvestable interfaces and exposing standardized metadata to registering repositories and endpoints in RESRI-Data. Next steps include finalizing these recommendations and presenting and discussing them at the next NFDI metadata workshop. An important part of this process is active exchange. We explicitly invite representatives from NFDI consortia, domain experts, and all interested people to provide feedback and discuss this approach. We also work closely with other NFDI working groups, as shown here. We hold monthly meetings always on the last Tuesday of the month, next on the 24th of February, and everybody interested in this topic is very welcome to join. More information in the chat and in the info slides at the end. Thank you for your attention.
So we see that it is necessary to have harvestable interfaces and exposing standardized metadata in order to find and use research data. So that's why we're stopping at our next bus sign on the roadshow. So because there's more to consider here, for example, when describing research data, software, or the use of knowledge graphs to connect the different nodes. And from the perspective of our NFDI universe, it is therefore clear that finding the right research terms for the right data set can be challenging. And terminology is a key part or aspect here.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Roman. I'm presenting here the working group Terminology Services. And before we talk about Terminology Service, I want to do an interview since we are on the roadshow here and you have this Q&A section there, and it would be fine for me that you could enter there some stuff since I will ask you a question. But before we could do that, could you please shut down the light? Oh, thank you for that. I would ask, what is that? I will give you 5 seconds or so, and then I will continue. You probably already have something in mind and what that could be. Okay, I think you have nice ideas and answers in your head. However, in my case, I would say, and we have to continue now, that is the Venus in this case. And I would have a second question. What is this? Yes, I think we could continue again and we could say that is also the Venus, but I could also say it's the morning star. And regarding the other one, I could say it is the evening star. Since in the past, the people were thinking the morning star and even the evening star are two different planets. And the reason for this is that the planet has a different position in relation to the sun. When you're looking on the morning and in the evening to the that you could it depends on the sorry for that it depends on the position of the sun where the Venus is on the left hand side or the right hand side of the sun, that the people were thinking that there are two different planets. So however, could we please turn on the light again? So by daylight we see the sun, or in German I could also say it's the Sonne. Or is the sun even a morning star? And do we have multiple morning stars? And what I want to show with this little example is why terminologies are important, and it depends on the perspective of the different people. So same objects or items could have different labels, and also it would be possible it is possible that different objects or items could have the same label. And a solution for that, all of you probably already have in mind, since when you think on books, there's something which books often providing to you, and that is an ISBN number. And in more general, we could also say an ISBN number is nothing else than a standardized identifier. So we could say, and terminology or terminologies could provide standardized identifier on the one hand side, but we could also say that they are providing human readable terms. Just think again on Sonne and sun, so they could be also multilingual. What they also could be is that we have structured data here. So we could also say that Venus is an umbrella term for morning star and evening star, and that they also have a relationship to sun itself. And to say that a little bit more, what we could also say is that terminologies could support the whole research data lifecycle. And you could just think on the metadata annotation, which is important to find stuff like shown before in the presentation of Heinrich in the search and harvesting group. So the search of data is also important as well. So we could also say that terminologies are the heart of metadata for a fair research data lifecycle. But what we still didn't said is what is a terminology service? And now we will have or face also this as well. So what is the terminology service? And then we could also say a terminology service is the backbone to access terminologies, which means in this case that it provide terminologies for different knowledge domains, so that experts or other people could also understand what with a term is meant. It also provides a graphical user interface for humans as well. So we could also interact with terminologies via a user interface. But it also provides access for machines via APIs. So it's also possible to access this data with machines and AIs, LLMs, and it's also the backbone more or less for AI readiness as well. So what is the vision of the working group? What we want to do is we want to share knowledge about terminologies and terminology services to interested people. And in this, we also want to discuss technologies, how to do that. We have different solutions inside of the NFDI. How could we harmonize them that we could access the data there as well? So in addition, what I also could say is we want to provide help to users which want to interact with terminologies in general, we could say. And for that, we also want to present solutions. One of them will be also presented in the chat, since we will have a workshop in the mid of May, not May, March. And we want to present the examples and share experience, how terminologies could be accessed for specific use cases. And think again on such tasks like data annotation or data retrieval. But however, I still have something in mind. First of all, I want to say thank you that I could attend here, and I'm happy to answer your question if there's somewhere. But the main question is still there. What is this? And I could say, no, it's not the Venus, it's a bowling ball. And I play this ball now to the next working group and also to Stephanie for the nice organization here. And I want to say thank you.
Well, to not stop the rolling ball, we directly go to our next cross-cutting topic, and this is knowledge graphs, which are also central for linking and understanding data and its context, especially when we look for research data. So the floor is yours.
Hi there, I'm Fidan, and I'm presenting today the Knowledge Graphs Working Group on behalf of the working group. So if we could imagine how we can conceptualize the aspect of a scholarly domain, for example. If you could just move through the animation, please. Then we would see that we have a publication which uses a data set, and moreover, a data set that being extending another one on a workflow, generating another one, another data set, or a data set or a publication using and also being associated with an organization. Then include aspects like citations, for example, bring a structure that could bring certain research artifacts together, and so on. So if we could move on, we can add other relations, other research artifacts, depending on how much we want to represent what our collection is. So we can even, then as we can imagine, this can grow, right? And it can include any domain. So the motivation for knowledge graphs is that they are capable of mapping the way we conceptualize a domain in a graph way, and also capturing all these rich and varied research artifacts, connections or relationships including. Also, they are flexible enough, which means they can grow naturally, organically, as we have new things to say or add, and relationships are treated seriously. So simply said, we have nodes and relationship and attributes about these, and some sort of a unifying layer, which is used to typify what we mean by a certain node or relationship in the graph. And this is a link back to the terminologies which Roman just presented. So the benefits involve representing a more complete picture, research picture in terms of deliverable, according to FAIR principles as much as possible, supporting organic growth of the graph in terms of enrichment and linking to other relevant aspects or collections, and supporting existing and new use cases. So why a knowledge graph in this context in NFDI? Because they do support research data management practices. They also, even we can say by design, they can support the FAIR principles and accessible for humans and machines. We also see them being adopted across NFDI consortia, which makes it even more interesting topic. And then because there are different practices of how to adopt knowledge graphs, because of different domains, research data, use case, and requirements in general, there is a need to promote and support the knowledge graph adoption. So let's see next how. So the knowledge graphs working group aims to structurally and systematically collect or catalog these adoption practices, disseminate them regularly, and then consult with individual consortia or groups in NFDI, and then develop relevant services in different contexts, right? So it can be federating over other collections, and then it can be interoperating with others. So one example is a base service, for example. These could be common services which can be used across. Then in the context of the NFDI specifically, we aim to, FAIR data practices are really important for every consortium, and then we aim to support that, but also provide some sort of data access and exchange at the data level. So not only about these practices, but also get as closer to the data as possible, and then provide tools and services as much as possible. So let's see. Our contributions map directly with aligning different practices within NFDI, but outside of it as well, in terms of standards or terminologies as presented and technology as well. And then with other infrastructures which are not necessarily NFDI related, but with which we can get broader access to. Then disseminating within the different consortia and communities and working groups, and collaborating together towards common outcomes. For example, KGI for NFDI services, one such example. And then having an ongoing survey for practices in case we miss or new practices are present and we want to capture them. So let's see next more about the survey which we did. And then it's, in this case, we had a broad sense of research data management functions which we captured. both from the literature and those presented from the participants. So next we can see a bit more about the survey. We had around 11 NFDI consortia present and around 27 knowledge graphs. And beyond the usual suspect, we also saw some interesting research data management support, such as AI readiness, which tells us that the community is using KG to adopt for the upcoming or uptake of AI and LLMs. And so the complete data set is published and available there. And then maybe just quickly, next, I could just mention about some of the aims to deepen the survey of practices, because we get so much more questions that we can answer based on a quantitative survey collection method. We are introducing new types of talk in the working group, so inviting members not only within but outside the NFDI. So you're welcome to get in touch and present if you have something to on the topic. And then we seek for venues to publish our findings. And then finally, to conclude, we are connected to different working groups in NFDI, and also with initiatives outside, because we want to bring some of the, to broaden the reach of some of the NFDI working groups and activities outside. So thank you very much for your attention, and please stay in touch if you want to know more.
So, as we can see, knowledge graphs are central to find and connect research data. But of course, it is not only about the research data, it is also about the needed software for research data. And now we will listen to the 3 focal areas in regard to this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie. So my name is Bernd Flemisch, and I'm happy to introduce you to the working group Research Software Engineering that is allocated within the NFDI section Common Infrastructure. So we would like to address and connect these 3 focal areas. First one being infrastructure. So software represents an essential component in digital infrastructures, as we all know. Development of a networked infrastructure requires jointly developed solutions and agreements for the implementation. And functionality, connectivity, compatibility, and security of the infrastructure as a whole and of the individual software components depend on jointly agreed interfaces, standards, and conventions. So the second area you see is the software itself. So working with research data and its usefulness go hand in hand with the use of research software. In addition to the data, the software required for its use and analysis must be equally available. And with its range of variation and abundance, the provision of research software and its findability has become a challenge in itself. So the third area or pillar here are the actual people, the software engineers. So they offer abilities set up as work and duties done for others with the required services, assistance, and help. And in particular for the NFDI to build and sustain the NFDI itself and the research software that is in there. So in terms of products and also digital tools. So in our working group on research software engineering, we develop, discuss, and initiate measures across these 3 areas with the common goal of bringing together the NFDI consortia and all software-related aspects, particularly in the verification of research software. So I would just like to briefly show 2 of these measures that address challenges in this verification and that evolved from our working group into now ongoing NFDI basic service projects. So the first one is a software marketplace, so for finding and accessing the extensive portfolio of research software that is brought together within the NFDI. And with the necessary metadata, it is we want to make a research software findable, and that is nucleating from our working group, the basic service NFDI.software evolved, which tackles this challenge of findability and also then accessibility in the longer run. And the service allows accessing the portfolio of the software. So the second measure that I would like to briefly present is that in terms of interactive computing, so research software very often exhibits complex dependencies, both on the software stack and the hardware. So these dependencies, they render the accessibility and reusability of the software, and particularly the reproducibility of associated results, very challenging. So interactive computing services are potential solutions by offering browser-based access to the complete software stack and compute resources. So one technology allowing interactive computing is provided by Jupyter Services, and our working group brought together Jupyter Hub providers in Germany. So Jupyter Hub is essentially a server that allows for multiple users to open so-called Jupyter Labs. And we collected and listed available hubs, and we formulated and then proposed an NFDI-wide basic service, Jupyter for NFDI. That is a central Jupyter hub providing access to software stacks and computing resources across the NFDI consortia. And the service is up and running, and it's currently in its so-called integration phase. And so these have been successful two measures from the past that now evolved into, as from the working group that evolved into basic services. As a working group, we are currently in a very interesting phase of reshaping our focus because with the two basic services, so to say, outsourced from the working group, we are kind of reformulating our goals, reformulating our concept, and I would very much like to welcome you to be part of this process. Join our mailing list, come to our meetings, and so we would like to, as mentioned in the beginning, represent all software-related activities in the NFDI.
So, and with this invitation, we move directly to our next aspect, which is quite close to this one. So, as mentioned, a particularly important complementary aspect for research software is also the research software metadata. And for this, I would like to hand over to the next speaker, and we will learn a bit more about that important aspect. So, Stefan.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So I would like to give you a few insights on the working group of research software metadata. So as Bernd already pointed out, research software is a really important research artifact, basically a specific type of data. You could see it. And for that, it's also important to properly document it, properly give metadata to it to also make it findable and fair at the end. So what we're aiming for is kind of a harmonized description of research software with metadata over all consortia to improve the findability, but also improve aspects as understandability through links in the metadata to related material, to licenses, etc. So to see how this common metadata schema could look like and what important properties of metadata schema are, we can go to the next slide and see that typically research software is kind of described in a similar way as research data. So you have a name, you have a description, there's a license, which is really important for the reuse, of course, the link to the repository. A programming language is something for research software, which is really important because a lot of researchers prefer certain programming languages and they only reuse research software if the software is provided in the right programming language. And they, of course, hardly argue what the right language is. Also, operating systems is an issue here because the researchers really prefer different operating systems and only have certain operating systems. And of course, contributors, etc. So you see, if you want to describe research software, similar as research data, you need kind of a schema to do so. So we have this metadata schema, which of course should be similar between the consortia, but also have some domain-specific aspects. So what did we do so far to come closer to this goal of harmonizing research software metadata? So we analyzed what is currently done in the consortia. And when it comes to research software, it's really diverse over the consortia. We see that some consortia are aiming for the use of non-domain specific schemas like CodeMeter or citation file format. And others are also on the way of developing their own schemas for their own domain. We also see that the adoption of metadata schemas for research software really varies, since the consortia also target research software to a different extent, with some consortia targeting it less because research software is not that important in their research domain, while other consortia have a high focus on research software because research software is a really important artifact in their research domain, depending on their research background. In the second step, we also got deeper into the different approaches and really looked into what terms do they use, what properties do they focus on to better understand what information is needed. Can we already start with a common approach like CodeMeter, or are there additional information we need? From there, our future goals are to really provide a clear metadata standard based on existing standards for the NFDI, using probably CodeMeter as a core, and then also an extension to really cover the most relevant information for all consortia. And then as a next step, we want to help the different consortia to provide good solutions for research software in their domain, to basically finally then enable findability for research software across the NFDI ecosystem. By this, we can also support the base service NFDI software by basically underlying the metadata for this base service. And finally, by achieving this goal, we can make then research software hopefully more accessible and usable overall for the whole research domains. Thank you.
And with these final words, we'll move on our road and actually leave the bus stop sign and move a bit forward to two more essential parts. And because while we are talking of having research data and software more accessible, researchers need to focus on more aspects. And right at the start of a research project, questions arise regarding data access, use, storage, and also the reusability. So it is important to have a data strategy and also to clarify all the ethical and legal aspects. So let's start with the data management planning part.
Hi, I'm Jürgen Windig, and I'm one of the coordinators of the working group on data management planning. And we already heard about several different aspects of data management, and a few will also follow up the next stops. But a general question that many researchers and research projects have, and that comes up in almost every consultation, is, I know about the goals, I understand why it is important, but where do I start? And the starting point is to develop a data strategy for your research project. You need to plan in advance the measures that ensure reusable and fair research data, methods, of code, and at the end of your project. And our vision is that every research project has a clear data strategy for how to achieve fair data. Most data problems become visible at the end of a project when you want to publish, share, or archive, but the causes are usually much earlier, in the middle of the project, when key decisions were never made. Who is responsible? Where will data and code live? Which metadata standards do we use? What access rules apply? What happens when staff leave? And we see data management plans as a tool to support researchers in developing such a strategy. Templates offer guidance on all important aspects of data management, provide examples and good practices. And if developed for a specific community, they inform researchers about standards and established procedures for handling research data in a specific domain. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Of course, making a plan doesn't solve everything, but it forces these decisions to be made early on and documented clearly. And that reduces risk, saves time later, and makes collaboration a lot smoother. The Working Group on Data Management Planning, or in short, InfraDMP, coordinates all DMP-related activities across the NFDI consortia and has established a regular exchange and cooperation on template development, DMP tools, and trainings. And our objectives are first to implement the DMP as a tool across NFDI to foster data management practices and to support researchers in developing their research data management concepts and strategies. Second, we want to establish domain-specific and modular templates that researchers can easily use, that are both discipline-aware and practical. And third, we want to better connect the planning with the execution, meaning we want to connect tools for data management planning with other services for data management, for example, for storage, repositories, identifiers, or metadata services. So the plan links directly to the infrastructure you actually use. During the cooperation in InfraDMP, we had many exchange meetings and workshops over the years, and we discussed, for example, quality criteria and contents of data management plan templates. And there's also ongoing work, of course, on other aspects as well. So far, several consortia have already developed discipline-specific templates and guidance materials that are available in DMP tools or to download and can already be used for your research project. By developing such guidance and collecting feedback, this will also support the wider adoption of standards and good practices in a specific community. In addition to these templates, since 2024, we are building the NFDI basic service DMP for NFDI, which provides the DMP tool RDMO for the consortia, together with support and training. Currently, 6 consortia offer a community-specific DMP service through DMP for NFDI. Some consortia have similar services running, and others are in preparation. So if you're planning a proposal or start a new project, the DMP is a practical entry point, and it helps you to meet funder requirements, it saves time later, and it avoids last-minute surprises. And it makes it much easier to publish, share, and reuse your data at the end of the project. Or in short, it helps you turn FAIR from principle into a workflow.
So we've heard now how the workflow should look like or could look in a research project, in which, of course, various questions may arise, especially when we're talking about sensitive data such as health data or some other kinds of data. And here it is important to clarify, for example, data protection questions and also the ethical questions, which we will learn more about it now. We can't hear you, Oliver, so far, so maybe you should. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Oliver Wattele, and together with Timo Reichelt, I'm heading the working group on data protection in the ELSA section. Within the NFDI, the creation of a common understanding for an approach to data protection is a core goal. The ELSA working group data protection supports this goal by offering a forum for discussion where topics such as the interplay between AI law and privacy regulations, the assessment of anonymity, data protection training needs are thoroughly discussed, and we check on possible solutions, because somebody has certainly worked on the topic and there's expertise out there that we can easily share in a rapid way. Furthermore, by developing practical guidelines on fair data management and data protection, we want to enable researchers to learn and quickly benefit from the easy-to-use fact sheets. They are provided, or they provide an overview of the interaction between the FAIR principles and the provisions and considerations relating to the protection of personal data. They currently focus on consent, on methods for fair processing of personal data and data linkage, and more fact sheets that tackle legal basis for processing and trusted research environments are coming soon. So stay tuned, and we welcome your input and your participation.
Okay, I am Thomas, taking over for for ethical aspects, which, while data protection is maybe mainly about legal things, ethical aspects are intertwined with, but distinct from or complementary to such legal requirements, which also means that sometimes there are no simple and definite answers. It's not either yes or no, right or wrong, but sometimes in between. It isn't merely about checking some compliance check boxes and all is fine. And they are relevant for many scientific fields. Well, maybe most pronounced for if you're working with sensitive personal data, but they also affect quite some other research fields. And I'd also like to emphasize with respect to the general framework of this roadshow that they are relevant all along the road. I mean, I can add with respect to the two speakers ago, my Hessian colleague Jürgen Windeck, that if applicable, they should also be considered in data management plans. And now, well, what is our working group actually all about? Well, we also provide a discussion forum on ethical issues, and well, search for solutions. Well, there aren't always solutions. Life is more complicated sometimes than one would like to. And some of the focus topics are, well, the big and still evolving aspect of ethics with respect to artificial intelligence. We are dealing with dark data, which means, well, data which people sometimes don't even know that they still exist and they are poorly documented. And another aspect is also dealing with the care principles, which were developed for indigenous people, but can be more broadly applied to research while dealing with people and also dealing with the collective interests of groups rather than just individual aspects of data protection. And yes, and our final aim is obviously aligned with the overall goal of NFDI, which is making data fair. And with respect to the A in fair, accessible, there is a common misconception or misunderstanding that it necessarily means open access for everyone. No, that's not necessarily the case. It can also mean accessible under well-defined conditions or only for specific purposes and with some restrictions. In other words, it also means that you can be fair and at the same time care. So it's a challenge, but well, not an obstacle that cannot be overcome for making data fair and for sharing them with other people in an ideal world. And now I also want to use this opportunity to announce one of our upcoming outputs, which actually starts tomorrow. Well, actually, we postponed the first talk, so it shouldn't overlap with this webinar, with this event. Further talks will be on Wednesday at 4:00 p.m. at a roughly monthly rhythm. And the first talk is an introduction to the entire topic. Then we have two more quote unquote guest speakers. Well, actually, three more guest speakers. And then we'll provide some output of some of our working groups. And with this, I hand over to the equally important aspect of long-term archiving of data. Thank you.
So, perfect. We've heard a lot about legal, ethical, or organizational issues that are arising during the course of a research project. But also when we talk about reuse, especially when it comes to LTA, which means long-term access and preservation, this is an important stop on our way of achieving the NFDI goal. Because several aspects must be taken into account when we're discussing long-term reusability of research data. And of course, this also involves the storage of such data, but there are many other issues that we will hear more about it now.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Katharina, and I'll start with a question. So let's say in 50 years, do you still have your files and can you still open them? Are they still intact? The image you can see on the slides is from my own research. Luckily, it was not an important picture. And the gray section at the bottom is actually not intended. So the file is somehow broken. But when you're responsible for preserving data, you can check files, or you should check files with tools. And this image file, for example, would be invalid and would result in an error. And if you actually know there's an issue with the file, you might be able to repair it. Another case would be research results in a very specific format, at the moment common in a research discipline, but which were very expensive to generate or curate. But after 50 or 100 or more years, this file format might be obsolete, and who will make the file content accessible to the research community? It might be an important basis for future research or for understanding and reproducing your already published research. So, and that's what digital preservation is about. It aims to actively preserve valuable data beyond changes in technology, standards, and so on. So, and it is actually an important word here, because we don't know what will happen to technology in 50 or more years. So keeping track of such developments is one of the digital preservation responsibilities. And this digital preservation in general is supporting long-term availability, reusability, reproducibility of data. And the already mentioned working group, long-term access and preservation, LTA, is working on respective solutions for research data in NFDI. We started with the word archiving, but archiving is such a differently understood word in various communities, so we concentrate on user preservation. Work in progress at the moment is it's not actually always clear which service in NFDI provides storage, which preservation. Preservation is not just storage, and if there actually is a preservation service or solution for all kinds of data that need this. But researchers need this information, of course, for example, for fulfilling funder requirements. There may be questions in data management plans, which we heard about already, regarding long-term preservation and curation. And the working group is at the moment working on clarifying gaps, needs, and solution in NFDI via a consultation service funded by DFG. And this project is just starting. The consultation service will be targeting NFDI consortia and NFDI services, asking them about available services and needs, and will provide ideas and recommendations on preservation solutions. The working group already conducted a preliminary survey, but will expand on that, collect more detailed data. It will also work on a knowledge base, which should cover information on how data are preserved, recommendations for also from various disciplines and so on. Should take existing resources and sources into account, but might or should expand on that as well. And this is supported by clear terminology and standards. And I already mentioned the confusion between archiving and preservation. So this is an important topic in this regard, which are defining what digital preservation actually is in NFDI and which are the trustworthy services and institutions. And this is the basis for actually knowing when your data are preserved. If you remember, you want to count on whether data is still accessible and reusable after 50 years and longer. And for valuable data, this preservation should be as long as needed. And more information is on the slides at the end.
Perfect. So now we've heard a lot about technical and legal aspects of research data management, especially in large and interdisciplinary research projects. So on our NFDI road, we've moved a bit more forward, because if you are as a researcher in a big project or in an interdisciplinary project, there's the need for support maybe at once in a while. And therefore we have the next two signs. So on our roadside, once the information sites, which symbolizes our help desks working group, and on the other hand, maybe a snack vending machine, which is probably needed during long analyzing nights. So that's why we do have two more stops. And because the questions are relevant, for example, when you have different types of research data, different types of projects, and many more other factors which are important and maybe lead to a lot of questions during the project. So you need support, whether from experts or existing material collections. And to ensure that this works quickly for researchers, our following two groups are working on it.
Hello, my name is Marina Lemaire from the Service Center eSciences at Trier University, and I'm joined by Marta Stellmacher from the Saxon State and University Library Dresden. We are delighted to introduce the working group RDM Helpdesk Network to you. Imagine you are a researcher and have a question about research data. Maybe it's about data protection, how to handle your sensitive data correctly, or which tool is suitable to annotate genomic data. Where do you turn? Often it's not easy. Many institutions have people who can help, but knowledge is spread out, and research data is as unique as the research it supports. It can be hard to find the right expert for your specific question, which can lead to frustration, wasted time, and disproportionate effort, as you can see on this slide, which shows common problems for researchers and advisors. This is where our working group, the RDM Helpdesk Network, comes in. This network connects a collaboration of research data management support teams from all over Germany, from universities and research institutions to regional initiatives and the specialized NFDI consortia, research data centers, and many more. We recognize the challenges researchers face, and we are working to address them by building a professional network to connect these experts. Currently, we function as a valuable community where we can ask each other for help. However, we want to move beyond simple asking around. We want to develop structured workflows and tools through our project proposal Support for RDM to ensure that researchers are quickly connected with the right expert for their specific question. Support for RDM will be a service that focuses on knowledge sharing and organized workflows, allowing us to efficiently connect researchers with the best advice, no matter their institution or research field. It's about making RDM consulting more effective, building trust, and making sure valuable knowledge isn't lost. Think of it as moving from an informal ask-around system to a well-organized, reliable expert network. Our goal is to create a large nationwide team of experts that researchers can confidently rely on. How it works? Let's say you as a researcher have a specific question and ask an RDM expert at your local institution, but the question exceeds their competence. At the moment, the RDM expert might spend a long time searching, contacting different people, and struggling with unclear responsibilities. Thanks to Support for RDM, you and the RDM expert will have access to the combined knowledge and expertise of all the other helpdesks by using the helpdesk catalog or the chatbot, which provide reliable information about the various helpdesks and their areas of expertise, as well as information on subject-specific RDM topics. And if you are still unsure about the answer or which helpdesk to connect, there is a contact point that will quickly find the right expert for you. This exchange of knowledge and experience is key, It prevents everyone needing to be an expert on all topics, which is simply impossible as you always need expertise in your research field, first and foremost. And it ensures that even smaller institutions can benefit from the best research data management practice in their field. Now, I invite Marta to continue.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mic. Our network directly contributes to the goals of the NFDI. We ensure equal access to good advice, regardless of location or of the size of the research institution or the background of the researcher. This means for researchers that they have what they want. They want more time for the actual research and less searching. And at the end, that means also a higher quality of research data. The researcher is satisfied because he or she received quick and competent help, and the help desk staff also spend less time searching for information and experts. They're less overwhelmed by requests that exceed their expertise. They have more satisfied researchers and benefit from the exchange with other experts. So it's a win-win for everyone. We've already begun laying the groundwork for this improved network. Last week, we've submitted a proposal to establish this as an official NFDI basic service. If approved, this will allow us to build on this foundation and create a truly robust and sustainable system for research data management support across Germany. However, even if the proposal isn't approved, the RDM Helpdesk network will continue to connect and support the RDM expert community. We've already established a strong foundation for collaboration and are actively working together on key areas like quality assurance in RDM consulting. We're developing common standards and best practices and establishing documentation standards for support processes. With our network, we are positively changing the research experience and promoting the creation and sharing of fair research data. Our goal remains to make research data management as easy and efficient as possible for all researchers, and we believe that a strong connected RDM community is essential to achieving that.
So now we have heard a lot about the networking of existing support service across Germany that helps researchers. And at the same time, there's already a wealth of material available on how to handle research data, catalog it, and make it as accessible. And this is what our next team is working on.
Yes, thank you for having us. My name is Jonathan from the Academy of Science and Literature, and together with Andrea Polivka from the University of Marburg, we are the lead of the working group Collections of Open Educational Resources within the NFDI section Education and Training. Our working group aims towards the collectors and the curators of open educational resources with a focus on data literacy and research data management. The working group we are managing understands itself as a platform for networking, the exchange of ideas, and to learn who the other players in this field are. For example, other research data management projects, county initiatives, data competency centers, and so on. We meet on a regular basis, and during our meetings, we are updating each other, which is very beneficial and important in this very dynamic field. We do presentations of our open educational resource collections, and we discuss them, and in this way, we are learning from the experiences from the others. And of course, the FAIR principles play a very crucial role for these collections because open educational resources are itself data and are part of the open science idea. And we had almost 20 meetings since we started at the very beginning of last year. We had a variety of presentations and we discussed general and discipline-specific topics and platforms, good practices, and so far unsolved problems. Example would be the metadata standards for open educational resources like the DALIA interchange format, or hosting options for your material, or how to get feedback from teachers, researchers, or students for their for the learning materials. And at that point as well, the FAIR principles play a very crucial role. And with that, I hand over to Andrea.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you can see here on this slide, there is an example for a collection of training material. Our Cultural Research Data Academy team from NFDI for Culture, which I'm a member of, has recorded the needs for training programs and further information on research data management, as well as data and code literacy. On this basis, a curated portfolio, the Educational Resource Finder, or ERF as we call it, has been created, which lists and enables searches of our own course formats, as well as our own open educational resource, and as well as external training programs with information on the various courses and further educational offerings. And this selection focuses on the implementation of FAIR principles and is specifically aimed at the disciplines of our four culture communities, namely art history, musicology, film and media studies, theater and dance studies, as well as architecture and design. Furthermore, the team is in contact with various projects and initiatives regarding OER and their sustainable provision and reusability, in addition to a regular exchange in the NFDI cross-section, EduTrain, our own working group, as well as the DALIA project. And the team is active in various exchanges and discussions about topics like metadata, quality criteria, as well as joint formats. For the foreseeable future, we continue our monthly meetings, the presentations of OER collections and platforms, and the discussions. Additionally, we have identified recurring themes, questions, and issues in the collection management and reuse of materials. Examples include quality management, metadata schemas, hosting strategies, and business models. To provide transparent overview of the various solution strategies and methods used by participating projects, a publication will be prepared this year and made available on Zenodo. And our goal is that we are and will be open for everyone who is interested in OER collections to join us to discuss further on about platforms for data literacy and RDM training. Our next meeting of our working group takes place on February 16th, and everyone is warmly welcome to join. You will find the link in the Zoom here in the Zoom chat, as well as the link for the Rocket Chat channel, and you can also write an email to us. Thank you very much for your attention.
So, and we move on to our next part, because as we've heard, sharing knowledge about data is not only crucial for researchers, it is also crucial for other data holding organizations, such as industry. And exchange and collaboration with other data holders, such as industry or public institutions, also internationally and nationally, are key milestones for Germany and Europe as science hubs. So let's start by taking a closer look to industry.
Let me briefly outline our work on industry engagement. The NFDI section Industry Engagement builds a bridge between science and business. Our aim is to create value for society through coordinated collaboration with industry. We do this in a simple way. We listen, we co-create, and we put the ideas into practice. We keep an open, ongoing dialogue with our industry partners. It is built on trust. Together, we identify key challenges and set shared priorities. This keeps our work relevant and focused. Our current priorities cover 5 topics. First, collaboration models between industry and academia. We reviewed existing models and capture what makes them work. We turned these lessons into a guide for setting up effective collaborations. Second, a shared concept of research data and joint projects. We clarify what counts as research data, both from academic and industry perspectives. This creates a common language and reduces friction in day-to-day work. Third, measuring the value of research data. Our white paper shows how firms can measure the value of their data and their data-related activities. It addresses the lack of a shared conceptual framework and offers guidance for industry and academia on the key drivers of data value. Fourth, data spaces and interoperability. We work on concepts that meet high standards for security, intellectual property protection, and legal compliance. The goal is safe and trusted data exchange between academia and industry. Fifth, knowledge transfer and impact. We partner with companies to turn research into action. Together, we design and implement research-based solutions in day-to-day operations and measure the results. White papers for topics 1 to 3 are already available on Zenodo. Topics 4 and 5 are in progress this year. We will work on them closely with our industry advisory board and deliver concrete results by the end of the year. We contribute to the NFDI in 3 main ways. First, we provide legal, technical, and organizational frameworks. These frameworks enable responsible, interoperable, and fair data exchange between academia and industry. Second, we drive standardization and interoperability across sectors. We develop shared models, pilot real-world use cases, and offer step-by-step guidance to reach that standard. Third, we connect the NFDI to national and European data ecosystems. We align with Base4 NFDI and the European Open Science Cloud. We link to trusted data spaces such as GaiaX and CatenaX, and we make access easier for small and medium-sized enterprises. At this point, let me underline that this only works in collaboration with other sections such as ELSA and EduTrain. Why is this relevant for researchers? It helps you create research data that are more interoperable, reusable, and high quality. We support this with shared standards, easy-to-use templates, and clear, comprehensive documentation. We also offer training and exchange formats so that good practices spread quickly. We make international collaboration easier by connecting researchers, infrastructures, and data initiatives across borders. We lower legal and organizational hurdles with ready-to-use templates for privacy, intellectual property, and licensing. Finally, we promote cross-sector data use and innovation. We run pilot projects, publish white papers, and share best practice examples that turn research into real-world impact. In short, we make it easier to do good science and to share it responsibly. Through our industry advisory board, we bring industry views into the section. We aim for broad representation. We include representatives from large DAX-listed companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, and startups. We make sure the board is diverse in company size, sector, and industry focus. This ensures a wide range of perspectives and is further strengthened by having the VDI, the Federation of German Industries, on board. Last year, we began collecting and documenting successful collaborations between NFDI and industry. We present these as lighthouse collaborations, clear examples others can follow. In each case, we highlight the joint approach, shared goals, coordinated steps, and measurable results. The first example shows the project Material Digital involving several industry partners. The key result is a cross-company use case for materials information infrastructure. The second example describes how a research data infrastructure connects with an industrial data space. This is enabled by a service co-developed by an NFDI consortium in battery manufacturing. The third example highlights the provision of scientific expertise to companies for complex analysis of company-generated and company-owned data. It also showcases this year's focus on a section program, knowledge transfer and impact. For researchers, these collaborations advance the field, increase the real-world relevance of their findings, and provide a push for further research. For industry, the benefits include trusted methods, access to academic expertise, and fast innovation. These examples show what works and how to replicate it across the organization. In short, we build the bridge between research to practice together and with a clear, reliable standards. Thank you.
So, NFDE does not end at national borders, but also builds bridges not only to industry, as Regina mentioned, but also to our European neighbors. And with this part, we come to our last deep dive. And this is about the European Science Cloud, because there we promote the data exchange at the European level. And now we will have a deep dive here into this working area.
So, hello everyone. At the end of this roadshow, I would like to look beyond national borders with you and present the new section, International Engagement, to you. As previously said, research today does not stop at institutional, disciplinary, or country boundaries. Data, tools, and expertise need to work together internationally if we want to answer complex scientific questions. And this is why international engagement has been part of NFDI's DNA from the very beginning, and why we are now taking the next step by announcing the establishment of the new NFDI section, International Engagement. The vision of this section is simple but ambitious: to make NFDI an active, visible, and well-connected partner in the European and international research data ecosystem in a way that directly benefits researchers in their daily work. So one of our tasks will be linked to the European Open Science Cloud, or short EOSC. EOSC aims to create a federated European environment where researchers can find, access, and reuse data and digital services across discipline and countries. At the national level, NFDI is building very similar capabilities already. And the key question now is, how do we connect these systems in a meaningful and sustainable way? This is where the new section comes in. And one central task of the section International Engagement is to support the development of a German national EOSC node, the EOSC node Germany, as you can see here, operated by NFDI. In practical terms, this means that the NFDI services developed by consortia and based for NFDI will be connected to the European EOSC Federation so that researchers in Germany will be able to access European data and services more easily. At the same time, NFDI is not only a member of EOSC, but actively helping to shape it, bringing the needs of our scientific communities into the European agenda from an early stage. So instead of navigating many disconnected platforms, rules, and access points, the long-term vision is a more seamless research experience. Data and services that are easier to find, easier to combine, and easier to reuse across borders, fully aligned with the FAIR principles and accessible through a single access point via the EOSC Node Germany portal. So because this is a complex community task, technically, organizationally, and legally, the new section, International Engagement, will act as a coordination and support hub, bringing together NFDI consortia, infrastructure providers, and international partners, serving as a central point of contact for all matters related to EOSC Node Germany and enabling the NFDI community to actively build this node. The experiences gained from building EOSC Node Germany will be transformed into a reusable framework and guidance that help NFDI consortia engage with other European and international initiatives, for example, in life sciences, natural sciences, or in general, future global collaborations. So in short, Section International Engagement will help ensure that data created in Germany can be used internationally, and also that international data can be used effectively by researchers in Germany. We see this section as an invitation to participate, to connect, and to shape the future of international research data infrastructures together. Thank you very much.
So after a very long day in the NFDI universe, for example, we are now at the end of our deep dive in the universe. So we have seen a lot because in addition to technical and organizational issues, legal issues are central. So this includes exchange with other stakeholders such as industry and also EOSC, so that data exchange across borders also has to process research data to a high standard. And today we finally had numerous talks in today's roadshow, which also impressively showed that their contribution to the sections and to the NFDI goal is very important. But today we only reached a glimpse because there are many more, at least 20 more other working groups, but of course the time slot today. But if you are still interested in the sections and in the presented working groups, feel free to join them. You will find more information on our uploaded slides at the end in regard to all of the working groups and the sections. But for now, there's a big thank you from my side to all of the presenters and their contributions today. And with this, we also would like to give the audience the possibility to give us some feedback to our today's event. So if you would like to leave us some feedback to the event, you will find very soon a link to our Mentimeter poll where you can put in some of your thoughts. And of course, there is no hurry because afterwards, after our today's event, this questionnaire is still open, so don't hesitate. Right now, we will move on to the questions and answers part, but before I will hand over to the final words to our NFDI director.
Thank you, Stephanie, for taking us through this nice little roadshow, taking along the road, finally arriving at our goal today. Let me thank to all the speakers of today's sessions for your engagement and for your passion that you bring into NFDI, and of course for being here today and sharing your insights with us. Please make a click on the next slide. We did bring you some pictures from previous events. So from 2023 onwards, there are frequently on-site meetings where we closely work together. I think we have numerous Zoom meetings or virtual meetings in addition. So this can only be a little glimpse into what we do to make these results available to you. Now, I would like to give you a glimpse into the future. So a lot of these topics that we address today, of course, deserve that you go into depth. And if you are interested in data management planning, and if you want to see how it works in practice, then there's upcoming a demo session on February 10th from 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Please join us here if you are interested in this particular tool. And there will be more sessions like this, so stay tuned on our various channels where we will announce them. The respective section spokespersons are all dedicating lots of their time, lots of their daily time into these topics and pushing forwards all these topics. So thank you very much for your dedication for these topics. I know you are burning for these topics. We really rely on you to push these things together and to bring together the various bits and pieces. And you will find here the names of the various spokespersons. And with that, let me conclude this session before we go into Q&A. Thank you as an audience for your stamina for this almost 2 hours session. It was really a ride through the various topics. I hope it was entertaining a little bit. I hope it also provided a lot of useful information to you. We are more than happy to get in touch with you if you have further questions, if you want to use the tools, or if you want to engage in one of the working groups or sections. So please don't hesitate and contact us. Our goal, our vision is to have data as a common good for excellent research organized by the scientific community. Thank you very much.